Hi guys, so often I get asked why there aren't more kicks shown in swordsmanship or the styles of swordsmanship that I teach and demonstrate. And you know, the first thing to say is, why would you expect there to be many kicks shown in or used in swordsmanship? So globally speaking, if you look at actual traditional martial arts or historical martial arts from different traditions, are there many kicks shown in swordsmanship? No, generally not. They do appear here and there, however they are very much not widespread. I think the reason that people expect there to be more kicks or you know, attacks with the knees and the feet in swordsmanship is essentially from movies. Because whether it's Chinese kung fu movies or you know, American Hollywood movies or whatever, in recent times, because of, you know, since the explosion essentially of kung fu in the 70s and kung fu movies and so on, kicks have been seen as an integral part of martial arts. So anybody coming from a karate or a kung fu or a taekwondo background or kickboxing background, and having grown up watching these films in the 1970s and 80s, expects any martial art to have lots of kicks in it. So in the 1990s, for example, with TV series like Xena and Hercules and things like this, they incorporated lots of kicks into the sword fighting. But in actual fact, if you look before that time, because kicks were essentially fashionable, if you look before that time, kicks weren't really hardly ever used in sword fighting in TV and movies. And equally, they're very rare in actual sword-based or weapon-based martial arts. Now, that's not to say that they don't exist. Within the system, one of the systems that I teach, Fiore di Liberi, with the longsword, he shows a kick to the groin, and he also shows a kick to the front of the knee, and mentions a kick to the side or back of the knee. So kicks are certainly there, they do exist, and equally you can find them in the German treatises from the same period or a little bit later. If you look in Hans Talhofer, for example, you can see a kick to the kind of groin or stomach area in the longsword section when the weapons are up high. And this is the context that certainly within the European treatises you usually see kicks given in when the people's weapons have gone up and bound high, and so their weapons are occupied somewhere up here, whether they've got one weapon or two. Then suddenly it becomes available to give either a straight kick to their abdomen or a low kick to their legs or groin. And I'll also mention there, just because it fits in quite well, although it's a slightly different topic, I did see it mentioned somewhere that side kicks were something that came into Europe from Asian martial arts systems, and that's certainly not true, because in Fiore's treatise he very clearly shows a side kick given at the knee when the weapons are bound high, so the long swords come up high, he kicks the person in the knee in order to weaken their resolve with the weapon up here, and then hits round to the other side with the long sword. So the kick is, the side kick did exist in European systems, but the kick is really there in swordsmanship to enable you to do something else with the sword. Clearly, 99.999 times out of 100, you're not going to finish a fight with a kick. You're not going to incapacitate someone with a kick. Yes, you might break their knee, or you might kick them in the groin and they might fall on the ground. But ultimately, it's the sword that finishes the fight, because that's the weapon. That's the thing that you can cut and stab with, or really, you know, knock someone out with. In pretty much all the situations I know of from European martial arts, the kick is really only there to enable you to hit the person with the sword or stab them with the sword. And now what's interesting is looking at Asian martial arts, for example. So if we look at the living and documented traditions from India, China, Korea, Japan, we've got Kenjutsu, forms of Bujinkan, obviously Kendo, and then you've got Gatka, Shastra Vidya in India, Kalari Piatu as well. Then you've got Filipino martial arts, you've got a lot of weapon-based Asian martial arts, and kicks within those are relatively rare as well. In Kenjutsu you see kicks very rarely, or relatively rarely. They're usually, as far as I can see, used in the same way as the European sources, either to hurt the person to enable you to do something with the sword, or possibly to trip them. And I know some of you will have seen the early kendo videos from before the Second World War, so I think they're from the 1930s probably, early 30s perhaps, where they actually used little sort of tripping blows and sort of barging, body checking the person, and also tripping with the legs. This is before modern kendo rules changed the game, as it were. So you do get actions with the knees and the feet, kicks, trips, these kind of things, definitely. Kicks themselves, putting trips to one side, because trips are probably more common statistically than kicks in weapon-based martial arts, as far as I have seen, and certainly in Europe that's the case. But kicks themselves, they do exist both in European and in Asian sword-based or weapon-based martial arts, but they're not very common. Certainly not as common as some films and TV shows would, might lead you to believe. So there we go. I hope that's of some interest and use. Thank you.